We can hear you.
Yeah, I think we can start the conversation, and we're glad to have this opportunity to communication with our team and also our community member all over the world. I think that we are just building for our product and do a lot of development, but we are just lack of time to do a full communication with the team always. So today is a very good opportunity that we can communication each other and let people know what we are doing and what's our planning and what's our people concern about us. So we will answer your question one by one. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Yan-Bo. So Alan will be kind of DJ for today. So welcome everybody. So I think it's quite late in Asia, and I think it's quite a good time in Europe, and a little early in California, especially for our developers. But I think it's good to be everybody in the same house. So Alan will be the DJ. So I hand over to Alan to start today's program.
Great. So welcome everybody. So what I wanted to do was, we have a couple different ways that you can communicate with us. One is on the Zoom conference. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, you can actually use the Q&A function and send us questions, and we'll try to answer those. We're also going to take questions from our YouTube Live channel as well. But first, before we get started, we're actually going to go over to some messages that we've already kind of accumulated from Telegram and many of our other social media channels. So, so without further ado, I think we could just go in and jump into it. What do you think?
Sure.
Okay.
I hope everybody knows everybody who are on the video. So we have Elon, Yan-Bo, and Alan, and myself. So I hope it's clear.
Who else?
Of course, we have more people. We have lots of developers, but I think today it's the main focus is really on the kind of the core team and what are the bigger decisions and big directions the project's going, right? And because the mainnet is coming up soon, our testnet is doing well, and people are asking about things beyond mainnet. So, and also of course about exchanges and the economic model and marketing, etc. Yeah. So like Alan said, we'll go through the some of the kind of the questions already submitted, and then we switch over to live question and then switch back and forth. So then we have a good balance of the questions and liveliness as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So Alan will be the DJ. So ask question nicely, and Alan will pick the best ones and from the live stream.
Awesome. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started then. So I'm going to actually take, first of all, some of the questions that we've already gathered from Telegram. This one's from RV, I guess. And this is one that I think kind of accumulates a lot of different questions that we get, and that's about our roadmap. So the question here is, what's the roadmap post mainnet, smart contracts, integration, etc.?
Okay.
You want to start?
So I'll start, and then maybe Yan-Bo and Elon can chime in as well. So I think it's correct that our main, like a current roadmap is only kind of up to the June, like a mainnet time. So we actually did lots of thinking and planning in the last few months, and especially with the workshop in San Francisco area. So we'll publish that maybe closer to the mainnet, but I can give you a highlight of what we're going to do, right? So first of all, if you look at the short term. So upon the mainnet launch, we will also release 2 products. One of them is already actually released, which is a PubSub, decentralized publish and subscribe. That's the first product. And the second product actually is in the content delivery network. We call it new kind of CDN. So that is for video streaming, and we have a unique use case and unique benefits and advantage there. So we can talk a little bit more later. So those are the kind of 2 products we will launch at the same time as the mainnet. Because I think we saw lots of the projects. They got lots of fanfare about mainnet, and everybody gets lots of high expectation. But as soon as mainnet is launched, and then kind of lose the momentum, right? I think that the reason is people ask after mainnet, say, so what? Now what, right? So I think the adoption and the application that we focus on is we call the flagship products, and start with 2. I think these are the kind of the real things that can let people use the mainnet and make kind of good use case out of it. And potentially in the short time to medium term can also generate revenue for us. So that's kind of the mainnet launch, and also the 2 flagship products. That's June for this year. And then if you look at 6 months ahead, right, end of 2019, what we'll do. So I think we will definitely continue to improve our mainnet and adding features. So I think Elon and Yanbo can talk more. So we have some plans for the virtual machine, right? So to enable some of the smart contract capabilities, and we want to refine the payment channels. So how can we enable session mode? So sometimes you have lots of packets for the same kind of session. How can we reduce the amount of transaction that need to be recorded on the block, right? So the payment channel is very important. And also that we enable all these kind of microservices, like the CDN services, like the PubSub services. And so we are kind of thinking a little bit like Amazon Marketplace. So Amazon launched with books, right? And then afterward, they have CD and DVD. So they start with 2 products, even though they did not say so much about underneath platform, but that's actually their main differentiator. So we cannot just, like a small company, we cannot just launch a platform and then hope everybody will come jump on board to use it, right? Our strategy is, yes, we'll have a great platform, but we also have 2 flagship products to go with it. So to show people what can do, not only to show people what can do, but those 2 products can be a very profitable and significant business for NKN first. And when other developers see the opportunity, they will use this, our kind of software, we call the software eBay or software Taobao in Chinese term, that they can develop software on top of it, and individual people can run the NKN node, run this little servers, and they become a vendor of software, and then people can use it. So that kind of marketplace platform will be the focus for second half of 2019 and also 2020. So that's kind of our kind of main strategy. And of course, if you look even further long term, right? I think about last year, we stated our very ambitious goal. So in 5 years time, which is counting from 2018, which is 2023. So we want to have maybe 100 million active users that they use some kind of application or service, which is run using some of the NKN technology, using our SDK or API, or just run the traffic on top of it. And we are talking about 5 million NKN mining nodes devices, and also 1% of the telecom or the internet communication revenue, which is about 14 billion, run on top of, transact on top of NKN. So that's kind of much longer 5-year term kind of goal, very ambitious, but I think we will start with the strategy we have for this year and next year, and then heading toward that way. So that's kind of very long version of what we do beyond Mainnet, and we'll document it, and closer to Mainnet, we'll release the new roadmap as well. So anything to add, Yem or Elon?
Just as Bruce said, we have a short-term plan and a long-term plan. And for the short-term plan, we would publish 2 servers, just like the PubSub and also NewCard CDN. So these 2 products could be based on NKN and use the NKN token in future. We choose these two products is because they are easily to be commercialization and easily to be get revenue. And also they have some natural advantage to set up based on NKN. You know, just some the app is just they want some commercial products based on blockchain. But for these 2 projects, they have some advantage. Just we will explain them more detail in future. But for the PubSub, we have a decentralization nodes that can be relay the message to each other. And for the CDN, we already have over 10 color nodes all over the world. All of them could be an agent node and used to catch content and used to speed up web access in future. And we also have some long-term plan, just as Bruce said. So we have a clear plan in future and also now.
Awesome, great. Well, thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to jump down a little bit. Here's a question we got from Crypto Bambi. And any one of the panelists can take this up because I think this question I've seen a couple different times. How many developers are currently actively working on the code for NKN? Does anyone want to jump in on that?
Yeah, so we have about full-time, in terms of internal full-time, about 10 people, software developers. They're actively working on NKN software. That's including mostly the core part, but also the front end and also some of the tools. But I think we don't stop there, right? Because I think NKN is a typical kind of example of a good kind of open source project. So the core development team or the committers actually are a very small community, and you don't need a lot of people there, but you need a very high quality developer. So I'm very happy to say that we have really high quality superstar developers in-house. And then surrounding them, we have a large group of community developers, and you can see that we have the NKN.ORG and developed by Chris and Andrew and Sam, right? And we have the new kind of wallet developed by Amir and Martin and their team, and then we have lots of people actually working in the background. You don't see so much, like John Smith and a few developers who develop SDKs. And for the client, for the wallet, it's not visible to end user, but it's actually great for developers to use different language to use NKN. So they did lots of work there. And that's increasing, and especially in China, we have a new Chinese kind of developer community. They do Wi-Fi routers. They do entirely new firmware for the Wi-Fi router. They can run NKN natively in a very small configuration. It's a very cheap device and still have good performance. They have graphical user interface for that, and they design new script to run the NKN efficiently. So both in China, in Europe, and around the world, I think this community plus the core team together, I think that's what I think the power of development for NKN is really come from. Yeah.
Yeah, and besides that, we are still hiring. And in China and in Beijing, we look for some talent, front-end engineer. So if some people have interesting about that, just send the resume or CV to us. We're happy to talk with you.
Awesome, great.
I'd like to add some comments. So you know that we are testing our new 0.9 version, and this time it's mostly driven by the community, and it's tested by like thousands of home devices that where which the firmware is purely made by community members. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Awesome. Great. All right. Well, I think we'll switch gears a little bit. I'd like to take some questions from our chat. Those people are out there. SBG was actually the first one on our YouTube today. So we'll take his question first. So his question is, will there be a second token for transaction like a gas token?
Yeah, I can start, and then Yanbo probably can chime in.
Sure.
So, yeah. So I think we actually spend lots of time thinking about the token economy. Yeah. How can we improve from what we have today? So I think but the kind of short answer is probably not the second token, because that will add more complexity. But I think the other side of the news is we will do a few things to improve the token economics also for the holders, right? I think this is mostly coming from token holders. I think for miners, the economy is pretty straightforward, and for the users, pretty straightforward. But for the holders, what can they gain? So we try not to kind of promote kind of passive income. Like if you hold the token, you will always get some kind of interest or like a bank account. That's mainly because of the legal compliance reason, right? Because I think we are very close to Mainnet. I think we do want to attract the US customers. We do not want to be classified as security token. We really want to be utility token so we can actually open up to the US market, right? So this is actually very important in the legal compliance point of view. But how can we incentivize them? So there's a few ways. So first of all, I think if you want a token to be valuable, there have to be more people use it, right? And have to be used in a very fast cycle. So you can see how the engine coin and the basic attention coin. So they like engine have the Samsung use case, and the BAT have the Brave browser use case. So we want to improve the use case part, right? So that's the reason we launched 2 products that build on the mainnet and that can improve the usage of the token. And also, because those 2 products, we can actually get fiat revenue. So we'll use the fiat revenue part of that to purchase the token, and then use token to pay for the people who provide the service, right? So it's either a transaction fee or it's a session-based fee, where like if you are running a new kind of CDN, then you get paid by token. So the token will be much more useful. There will be a cycle of it, and also there will be a purchase from fiat we got to purchase those tokens. And those things combined, I think, will improve the token economics also for the holders as well.
Awesome. Any other feedback from our panelists here? Okay.
Yeah, I think Bruce already answered all the possibility. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
Just one tiny comment from the technical side. So technically speaking, using the NKN token as like the micropayment token would have the I would say almost the full functionality as another gas. So I think from the utility side, we don't need to worry about whether some of the function will be missing or something.
Great, great. Actually, since Elon is on here, we've got a question from our community for you. This one's from Cryptagora S. It says, I had a question about latency. As the number of nodes increases, is the latency between the nodes increasing? Do they all have to communicate with each other?
So, okay, so in short, I would say that the way NKN works is that each node only has a small amount of nodes over the all network as its neighbors. And that number is increasing, but very, very slowly as the number of nodes increase. So let me give you an example. So currently we have around 10K nodes. But if that number is increased to 1 million, then the number of neighbors is just increased by, if I remember correctly, like 50%, less than 50%. And then 1 million nodes would be really, really a large number. So each node only needs to talk to a tiny amount of the nodes in the network, and so to keep the network scalable and efficient. But on the other hand, the latency, the client-to-client latency between in the NKN network also increased very, very slowly as the number of nodes increased. And actually, because to make it easier to understand, there are two factors. So as the number of nodes become like higher, the path becomes slightly longer from client to client. So that's a negative fact. But there is also a positive factor. So as the number of nodes becomes, as the network size grows, the number of neighbors for each node becomes also larger. So each hop there is like more choice, and this could actually makes it reduce the latency. So that's a positive fact. So these two factors will try to like cancel it out, and the result is that the client-to-client latency will increase very, very slowly as the number of nodes increase. That basically, well, using the human word, that you don't need to worry about that.
Awesome, that's great. So we're gonna go back to some of the other questions that we've pulled together from Telegram and some of our social media channels. So this one comes from SciPod. Okay. So have you considered a different token model, including double token model, to incentivize more holders and miners? If yes, is it possible that there will be a charge announced soon?
I think we answered that question about the two token. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm going to go over to Lucas. So here's a question from Lucas. What's the block size and block time for Mainnet, and how it was picked? Can it be a major hurdle in the future of adoption?
Yeah, so I can take this one. So
okay.
Currently, it took 20 seconds to produce a block. So so that number. Okay, so I believe we received several questions regarding can we make this faster or something like that. Okay, so here is the thing. So the block generation speed could, technically speaking, could be faster, but not indefinitely, just to a degree. The reason is that fundamentally there is a limit of how fast block can be generated. So the time difference between block, that is 20 seconds for now, has to be longer than the time for a new block to be propagated from the block proposer to the whole network. So that actually that number varies greatly depending on your environment. But we are but we need to stress that we are targeting at a really, really large scale, at like 1 million node, and we are assuming each node is just like a typical home computer or router with typical home internet. But unlike some of the like block public chain, you know that they are targeting at a really like super node with super high speed internet, and just let's say 10 nodes or 20 nodes or so. Then for those lab environment, the block generation time can be much shorter because the block propagation time could be much shorter. But for us, since we're targeting at a global like million node network, the block propagation time couldn't be like too short as, for example, like 0.5 second as US, something like that. So so that means that we have to wait long enough for the block to be propagated to the whole network in order to produce the next block. And that's why we can make it faster, but not indefinitely. Yeah. But at the meantime, it shouldn't be a concern about our performance, because our main data flow and the data transmission is purely off-chain. So typically, the client-to-client latency is just less than like 300 milliseconds. So that is as fast as the internet could go, and the data don't need to go wait for a block or something. So that shouldn't be a problem at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and also in addition about that, if we want to do lots of payment in a short time, we also have some payment channel to do that, which also will speed up in such a use case to just to make lots of payment together and then put them to the blockchain.
Yeah, so for the payment channel, all the like channel update would be as fast as the data transmission. It will be take like millisecond level latency to be updated, and only at the time that one of the party wants this money to get transferred immediately, then we need to wait for a block. But otherwise, most of the time it's just instant.
Okay, great, thanks. So I'm actually going to go back to a question from Avi, which is, he asks, what has NKN team learned from other projects that are still struggling to find adoption, massive user base? What are the measures that will be taken to ease adoptions?
Yeah, so I think Silicon Valley have lots of VCs, right? Venture capitalists. I think we met some of them, and one of them said to us, if you're a small startup, right, try not to sell a big, ginormous platform. Try to sell one or two really, really good products, right? Once the product sells, then you can start to sell your platform. So I think that's kind of one of the kind of wisdom I think we took quite early on. So like I mentioned earlier, that lots of projects launched Mainnet this year or earlier or late last year, but then kind of interest level or the adoption did not really follow, right? So what we try to do is really use our own flagship products as a leader, as example, and so that's we talk about the new kind of CDN, the PubSub product. I think they actually are not only they work in a decentralized way, but also they actually have advantages over the traditional services. So I think we tweeted about the 6 advantages, right? So because we are really scalable, so nobody have like 10,000 data centers around the world or even more. And secondly, we are very resilient, right? So typical centralized service, you have a breakpoint somewhere, but for us, it's very difficult to break 10,000 nodes. And also kind of we have a dynamic pricing model, right? So the people who run the software or run the mining, they can come and go, and also depend on token economy and how much people are willing to pay, right? So that actually is very dynamic. You don't have to fix kind of statically dimension how many nodes or servers and pay for it, but you can only just kind of pay as you go. And so there's lots of kind of benefits that traditional centralized service do not have. So we want to compete in a bigger world, the ocean. That's my analogy. So to be the best blockchain project, it's nice, but that's just like I'm the biggest fish in the fish tank, right? So what? So if you can really go swim in the ocean and compete with sharks, the centralized platforms and the platforms with the best products, with the best UI, the best scalability, then you can look back and say, okay, so I'm not only the best blockchain product, but I'm actually the best product, period, like in the world for that particular segment we are trying to address. So we do intend to make our PubSub and the new kind of CDN like a world class in that particular segment, not just comparing with other blockchain projects. So I think once you do that, then the revenue will come, the adoption will come, and then you break out of this crypto bubble, which is very small right now, right? And you break into the bigger, much bigger ocean.
Yeah, I think that's a very good opportunity that we have more detail about to introduction about our new CDN and the PubSub server, because I think lots of people still not very familiar with what's PubSub and what's CDN. Yeah, maybe Bruce, you can have a more detailed explanation about that, about the new CDN and PubSub, because I think for most of people there have no idea what's a PubSub. It's just a word there.
Yeah, I think I can talk a little bit about a new kind of CDN, because I think Elon already wrote a paper about the decentralized PubSub. But I think Elon, the next step, Elon already promised he will write an example, right? How can you use this PubSub to build application out of it, and also give people more kind of examples what you can do with that, right? So that I think we have in pipeline. But the new kind of CDN, I think this is something we haven't announced before, and this is actually new for everybody on the stream. So we find out that when our miners run their node, right? So for example, you're running on your home computer or DigitalOcean, you're only using about 10%, less than 10% of the CPU power, and maybe 50 kilobytes per second or 100 kilobytes per second, very small amount of your the data kind of quota for the month, and also a very small amount of the storage. So then we think, what are the best applications we can run on those miner node, and that can create additional revenue, but still within the kind of the capacity of the CPU, the networking, and the storage. So kind of new kind of CDN is what we designed, and already it's in pilot. We are working with some of the major media companies that have lots of live video streaming. So we will run this small kind of plugin, we call it, in addition to the NKN full node. So that plugin will have, of course, more storage, and that will actually cache in and also distribute the content. So the benefits is very obvious, right? First of all, it's almost kind of, the cost is almost zero, because the mining economy already paid for that VPS or that node. So any additional revenue is pure profit for the people who run it, right? So we can actually set up a very kind of reasonable price, but still will be very super attractive compared to traditional CDN. So because we have so many nodes out there, so it's always very close to the client who want to use the stream the video. So because I'm streaming video, there are two things very important. You have to have good bandwidth, especially if you want high definition or even 4K. Second one is very low latency, right? So the closer, we call the terminology is called point of presence. The closer the point of presence is to you, to the client, the better. So with our kind of global footprint of nodes, I think that will give people really good kind of capacity, performance, because lots of the CDN, traditional CDN, they probably have maybe 15, no more than 20 kind of data centers around the world. So they can never be as close as our node to you, for example. So there's lots of kind of these kind of benefits we have, and this kind of application will be run on the next to your miner node, and then we will distribute the token to you, and we will get the revenue from the media company who pay NKN based on the traffic or the sessions, and then we in turn use that revenue to purchase tokens. You use the tokens to pay for the people who run the service, right? So then you can really create a very strong kind of circulation and utility of the tokens, and I think that will benefit not only the miner, but also the token holders as well. So that's the new kind of CDN. I don't know if Yanbo or Elon, you want to add more to this new product.
Yeah, that's because the CDN market is a real existing marketing, and it's a big marketing there. And we just to introduce the original founder or company to utilization of a node to speed up and also lower down the cost to do such of things. So it's not an imagination use case in there, but a very good connection between the blockchain system with the traditional internet system together.
Yeah, and Alan actually did some market research, right? This market, how big is today, and what's the ratio of growth, right? So nowadays, most internet traffic is about video, right? So we are not kind of competing with traditional CDN, just kind of like basic stuff, but we focus on really kind of video and streaming part. I think that's actually where the growth and the most of the traffic is today, and also will be for the future.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Completely agree. So I'm going to take some questions from our audience here. So we have a couple here. One of them, actually, we've got some of our first ones from the Zoom Q&A. And the first one here is: in the future, is IPv6 being implemented in NKN? If yes, how may this affect the miners?
Yeah, so I can take this one. So I see that
Let's talk about that this afternoon, in fact.
See, it's very, very relevant.
Yeah, actually, I see that Jota asked, how can a home node with like over 50-second minute latency compete with a VPS with sub 10-second millisecond latency? So actually, first I want to stress that although there's a difference, but the difference is not as huge as you described. So for example, for like a lot of the US homeowners, the latency from their home to let's say another node within the same region would even would be much smaller than the number described at 50-second millisecond latency. So indeed, the home router or the home network will add some small latency to it, but compared to long distance latency, that's not a big deal. So the first thing, and the second thing that although it adds a little bit of a latency overhead, but that shouldn't be a big effect when we choose a route, because in the NKN route at each hop there is only a limited choice where a node can forward the traffic to, and it's so currently there are just 3 nodes to choose. So it's very unlikely that a VPS node of the same region will be competing with you. So it's most likely you as a home computer is competing with some other node all over the world, or like at the other country or other continent. So that so that means, in short, the proximity routing will actually bring some effect of the latency, but not huge, so that the home computer wouldn't be like affected by a large factor. Yeah.
All right, great. So one of the other questions, let me go back to our YouTube channel here. Bjorn Gregg asks, when is the next window to do the NEP5 to ERC20 conversion?
Oh, that's easy. It's already open. So we promised that the last 7 days of every month we'll open it. So we opened from yesterday, the 24th, and it will last until the 31st. So it's already open. It's at swap.nkn.org/swap. So it's already live, and I saw quite a few people. I mean, 24 or so people already swapped in the last 24 hours. So it's open, it's working, and we just don't advertise it, but it's open.
Yeah, if you meet some trouble, you still can send an email to swap@nkn.org, and we will answer immediately.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to go back to our list again. So we're at the 8:30 range. So this one here is from Aiden. He asks, could you explain how Stephen Wolfram is involved in NKN project?
Yeah, I can take this one. So I think, as you can imagine, Stephen actually runs a company and also do lots of research. So he cannot like spend days and days with us. But what he can do, actually, he already doing, not only Stephen himself, but also we have a few colleagues from the Wolfram Research. And Wolfram Research actually have a department or division called Wolfram Blockchain Labs. Yeah, I think so. They are the team who actually focus on working with blockchain projects. And if you look at their version 12, they already integrated with Ethereum and Bitcoin. So they can actually, from the Wolfram 12 software, you can actually query those two blockchains. You can even write transaction to those ones. So those kind of things they do. And so they help with a few technical things, right? So one thing is, how can we further improve the NKN system? So there are at least a few areas we can think of. The first one, are there any even better consensus algorithm or rules in the kind of the in the terminology of the cellular automata? Because I think the computational universe is kind of infinite, right? So today we have the majority vote rule, and it works really well, but there might be a variation of that or a different version that actually might work even better. We don't know, but we have to search the computational universe to find it. So that's, I think, the Wolfram researchers can help us. The second one is today we have the routing with some latency optimization, but there are so many parameters in the routing, right? So they can also help us how to simulate and find even refine the routing protocol as well. So those will be probably more medium to long-term kind of research goals, because I think our current priority is make the mainnet stable and performant and working reliably. So it's a little bit like Ethereum, right? You have all those Ethereum 2.0 or even 3.0 improvements. But once you have a mainnet, I think most people want stability and also kind of reliability and security. So those are our short-term priority. And once this sorts out, and then we think about the optimization beyond that. So that's on the technology side. But in addition, because Wolfram is a CEO and he's a serial entrepreneur, so he also gives us kind of CEO mentoring. So because I think Elon, Yanbo, and I, we are the founders, but we haven't run a public company before, right? So Steven's experience of starting with a small company and how to build it into a profitable large company, I think that is something he is very willing to help us and give us mentoring as well. So those are the two aspects of both technology as well as the entrepreneurship mentoring from Steven.
Awesome, great, thank you. This next question actually comes from Itlus, and this is actually directed more to Yilan. So it says, we saw a video with a game like Dota. Can we have some explanation?
Okay, so it is actually indeed like a customer map in the Dota 2, the arcade. So so it's a really popular one recently. So it is, so yeah, the game is definitely not like in any relation, in any sort related to us. But the interesting part is that the game so I think that I believe the video you are watching that the game is being played on the laptop, right? But actually the laptop is just a streamer that shows the game in real time and put back the action. So the game is itself is actually running somewhere else by a really powerful computer, and the laptop is just doing the minimum work to make it playable. So it's like a real-time game streaming where you can play the really heavy games anywhere from the laptop without any like your hard work being done on your laptop. So that allows you to play a game on Windows platform from a Mac OS, or allows you to play it on the battery for a really long time. So the thing is that this kind of tunnel is actually done by one of our like new products. So in short, what it does is like a uniform. It's like a generic tunnel or a service that allows anyone to provide such kind of service as long as he has a capable computer, and the one who uses the service actually pay the service for by the bandwidth usage. Actually, it's more than a game. The game is just one type of the service. It's actually applicable to any type of service as long as it can be served over the internet remotely. So yeah, there will be more details coming soon. So yeah, it'll be pretty fun.
Awesome, great. Just a hint into the future there.
Right.
So the next question I got is from backend. This question is, what's the incentive to increase node count? Are there any definite plans to make it more profitable running nodes, since I see a large decrease in node count?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I can start. So Elon and also Yanbo, I think we saw there's few public addresses that stop at the same time, right? So because it's a decentralized service, so we don't know when miners join or why they join or why they leave, right? So it's very difficult to predict. Some theories might be some people on DigitalOcean kind of credits, or could be some people just decide to do something else. So I don't think it's a major concern because the node count is always fluctuating. And also, actually, we have a large group in China, the miners, that we ask them to test our 0.9 instead of the public testnet. The public testnet is still 0.8, right? So you don't see, but there's lots of other nodes running on the version 0.9. So I think overall, the amount of node is still combined the 0.8 and 0.9. I think it's still in the 8,000, 9,000 range. So it's still reasonable. So that back to your question, how to further incentivize the miners. So I think at the end of the day, it's about the token pricing and also amount of nodes in the network, right? So I think earlier this year, we calculated if the token price is 5 cents, if it's mainnet, I think that token economy can support maybe 25,000 to 30,000 of nodes, assuming they're running on DigitalOcean $5 droplet, right? So they can break even. But then some people have lower cost nodes. Yeah, I know some people running VPS on $2 or even less per node. Then definitely, even at that price, they will be profitable. And some people run at home computers or Wi-Fi routers or Raspberry Pi that basically consume no cost, right? So then your cost is almost zero. So we have to kind of balance different miners. So I think the one-click is definitely very good for people to test it out and make it very easy for novice to really run it. And also in the longer term, I think with more and more home devices will run it as well. Once we kind of polish up the Wi-Fi firmware, and so people can actually have a plug-and-play solution. So I think we are kind of quite confident with the mainnet launch and with the token price at the kind of the reasonable level. We should be able to support lots of miners. And in addition, we mentioned this new kind of CDN and also the decentralized PubSub. Those will generate additional revenue for the miners if they choose to run those additional services, right? It's optional, but I think it will help them to get even more revenue to not only offset their cost, but also make some profit out of it.
It's just as Bruce said, and the one thing is that currently for the testnet, we just swap the testnet token with 1 compared with 5 ratio in this case. So we predict that there will be double or even triple loads when our mainnet be launched in future. And also we have lots of servers will be running in future, and we just as we said, just like CDN servers, just the PubSub servers, will some commercial incoming to increase the nodes profit. And meanwhile, one is the transaction fee. Currently, the transaction fee is just 0, but in the future, it depends on the community to decide whether we improve the transaction fee to no 0 or even to get some more profit from the transaction fee in future. But that's way open to community opinion about that. We don't want to set up the transaction fee by ourselves.
Yeah, so I think basically the implementation is already there, right? So the parameters of transaction fees there is just set to 0, but we want the free market to decide the fee and also the community decide what kind of transaction fee. Because I think it's typical in a small community, in the beginning, you want to be as low cost as possible, so you attract more people to use it, right? But once the usage becomes so high, like when you have CryptKitty comes in, and then you have to charge some fee, otherwise then you cannot kind of handle those traffic, right? So that's kind of balance. I think the market should decide, not by ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the major thing is just the second one is that they introduce some commercial use case to our loads. It's just like we are the Uber, and the load is just some Uber's driver, and we will send some passenger to the node to run something, and if they're waiting to run it, they will get some profit.
Right. And also the Uber sometimes also have surge pricing, right? Whenever it's a rainy day, everybody wants Uber, then the price can be double or even triple, right? Same with the transaction fee and also kind of the service fee as well. Yeah. So I think the miner, the market economy will define the return for the miners. Yeah.
Awesome, great. So I'm going to go back to another question. At least it was posted by SciPod. How do you plan to attract developers after setting the foundation with the mainnet release? Not always the best platform wins. We need rich community of developers for NKN to succeed. This one could either be for Bruce or Yanbo.
Right.
Yep.
So I think Yanbo have lots of experience with open source development. So he definitely knows a lot more. But I'm just talking from foundation point of view. So I think the foundation will unlock in May, 1/3 of it. So I think the foundation, the tokens are really for the long-term kind of health of the NKN ecosystem, right? So some of them I think we need to allocate to reward and encourage the community developers, not only developers, but community in general, right? Also the community members who promote NKN, organize local events, and so both on the kind of community supporter point of view, but also the community developer point of view. And I think the open source kind of community is very interesting because large companies sometimes say, oh, I have a piece of software, let's open source it, and then everybody will love it. But it doesn't happen that way, right? So just open source it and just kind of make it available. It does not attract kind of the developer. So from my experience, first of all, the technology have to be interesting, right? So because most of developers, they want to improve themselves. They want to be better and better at what they do. So this one is important. The second one have to be the core developers or the people who are already working there are good people, right? So not only technically good, but also people with a good intention. They have a larger goal in life to make the world better or whatever. Just like good people, right? And friendly to deal with. So I think we have both. And then, so at the end of the day, sometimes money is not the kind of even the main kind of driving force, because I think Yanbo can talk more, because he has been working in the Linux Wi-Fi networking for many years. He didn't get a single cent from it, but he actually enjoyed a lot. So I'll let Yanbo talk a little bit more. I'll search for a quote by Chris T from our community. So he says something, it's really good. Let me try to search for that. Yanbo, please go ahead. Talk about your perspective while I search for it.
Sure. You can say something about Chris T.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I found it. So Chris T actually built the NKN.org together with Andrew, and also they have Sam who is joining as well. So he tweeted recently, like he said, I just quote directly, "I'm still flashed by how much I learned on creating the NKN.org project. The most important one is that participating in the community give you something that money cannot buy. A network of people who do what they love, and lots of new impressions and knowledge. Thank you, NKN.org." So I think I'm not a developer. I have a little bit developing, but I think Yanbo, please comment. Does that say something about why you were doing the open source for Linux, or how do you view the open source community, like as a developer?
Based on my experience, that's two things always attractive developers, whether they will join this project or not. One is that with the technology itself is interesting a lot. And another thing is how many people will be effective or involved by this technology. So that's where we're very happy about that. The NK is the brand new technology. It's different with, it's not a new kind of POS or new kind of POW. It's totally different from, we set up the design and the concept from the ground. We get inspired from the new card size. And at the beginning, most people just double about that. Why? It's so complex, and I think you can't implement it. But today we made it, and so that's it's very interesting. If some people are willing to do spend just a little time to learn about the serial automata, you found it's very, very interesting. That's the first thing. Another thing is that the network is open and not scalable, and we haven't set any barrier to enter this network. You don't need to spend some money or spend some token to play with us. It's open for everyone. and it's a fundamental infrastructure. It's networking. So many people could be involved and be affected by our network. So based on that two sides, I think people waiting and very happy to do that because it's challenging and it's also very brand new things, and also those people will be affected by this technology. Of course, today is different with the old days. In the Linux code days, we have not been paid anything that day. Yeah, blockchain just have a very big, strong weapon if that it have incentive mechanism. We don't want people just to spend time, spend energy to our project, but they announcing, or the level be announcing because they at least they will learning some programming scaling. But today we also will give them incentive, reward them. It's just based on how many contributions they made. Okay. We have no upper limitation to them.
Right. So Alan, we have 9 minutes left. Maybe we can also do some of the tough questions like exchanges and things, right? Yeah, because I think it's fine. We can just cover them. So okay, I think well, I think people ask when Binance or when this exchange or when that exchange, right? So I'll answer in kind of in one way. So we already are on Bittrex, Upbit, Gate, and IDEX, and soon we'll be on Bilex, right? So those are the kind of the bigger exchanges we are on. So I think liquidity, I think is pretty good. I would say perfect, but I think the pricing and the liquidity is what the market can actually bear. So what's our criteria, right? So why we are kind of try to use this Blockchain Transparency Institute ranking. The reason is, if you look at that ranking, it does get filter out all the fake volumes, right? So they only report the kind of the real volume according to the algorithm. If you look at that, for example, Gate.io. So I think last time, the first time they had a report, Gate.io was the 11th, and now they are 7th, right? So I think it's one of the top 10 or even moving upwards in terms of volume. So that's one. And Bittrex is there on the top list, and Upbit is a number 2, right? So Upbit is number 2 in terms of honest or real traffic. So if you look at this one, then our priority is not to go to every exchange that's popular of the day. Some exchange do different tricks and to pump up their short-term interest or their own token price, or kind of inflate their volume. So they might be popular for a week or for a month or maybe for 3 months, but then they go away. So we have seen lots of those coming and goes in the last year or so. So we don't want to kind of go in that kind of a cycle, right? We want to find an exchange that not only we can trust, but also the token holders can trust, right? So if the exchange is doing kind of funny things, then do you think it will be kind of safe and secure for your property, right? Even though they give you kind of lots of rewards or kind of short-term kind of flashing things that you think it's kind of attractive, but beneath it, maybe you are compromising your potential security, right? So we are very serious about not only the security, but also kind of what's the integrity of that exchange? Can they provide real volume? Can they provide different audience, right? If this exchange has very similar audience than the exchange we already have, for example, like similar to Gate.io, then paying lots of money for that does not make much sense, right? It's not like I want to stress, we are willing to pay money for listing fees, right? If it's a high quality exchange, that really help us with broaden the audience and also broaden the improve the liquidity. So we are actually not only talking, but we have lots of discussion with different exchanges on the top list. So I think every day behind the scene, there are lots of things going on. It's just we cannot talk about it, right? So anything related to exchange, we only can disclose when the exchange are ready to disclose. So that's something we just cannot disclose in advance. So that's how we see it. Binance, I mean, everybody wants to be on Binance, but in reality, they haven't listed in a normal exchange for maybe 4 months or even 5 months. I think that's their strategy. They're moving on to the decentralized exchange and etc. So they are also going through lots of kind of internal evolution. But we still have very good relationship with them. We continue to supply them with our project updates and our community updates, our product and technology updates. So they are fully aware of our progress as well. So we are still working on that one, but we are also working on the other major exchanges on the top 10 or top 12 list. So stay tuned. Yeah.
No, that's great. I got a question here from our YouTube community here. Are you planning any token burn program?
I wouldn't say it's a token burn, but actually we have a new plan for boosting the token economy. We are actually have a final draft for it, but we haven't published it. So we're not really burning it. We probably will put it into a pool to further incentivize the miners. But in effect, you'll take some tokens out of circulation. So if it's not a burn, but it will reduce the active circulation to some extent, not dramatically. So we'll announce it closer to the mainnet.
Okay. So I've got a question here. So I got a question here for Yilan, because Yilan's been pretty quiet. So this one here comes from, does this come from Tanner? This one is, when will we see the tests of the network for TPS? Estimate date, and what do you expect to achieve?
Okay, so we are the current plan is that we will test the TPS after the 0.9 version is feature complete, because currently we are still mostly working on like adding and testing new features and making like necessary changes like before the mainnet. But the reason we didn't do it, do it in a hurry is because as a data transmission network, the data is actually transmitted off chain. So the off chain data, I would say off-chain data transmission throughput and latency is a much more important benchmark for us than the TPS. Well, TPS is mostly just for like transfer and or other kind of transaction. Yeah, and another thing that it's kind of the TPS is a well-studied thing, and we know that the bottleneck of TPS is mostly determined by two factors. The first factor is how fast the node could be, but the second, which is the most important factor, is what's the average internet connection, the throughput between one node to another node in the network. Mm-hmm. And we know that this kind of since TPS is basically kept by especially the second factor, when we test let's say if we measure the TPS and we get 1,000 TPS per transaction per second, and if we double the internet between node to node, then we will typically get 2,000 transactions per second. So that is not a very, I would say, that is more like an indicator of how fast the internet of system would be, not how fast how good the system itself would be. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
thanks for that.
Exactly.
And actually, sorry, by the way, I'm actually typing for the answer for another question. It's a very short one, but since I get the chance, I will answer it. So, Jota or Yota is asking when IPv6 will be implemented. So actually, IPv6 is basically supported except for a known bug. But the real barrier is that most nodes in the network currently are IPv4 only. So basically, if you tell him, okay, my address is this IPv6 address, he cannot connect it to me. So that's the real barrier before like we can actually adopt IPv6 widely in NKN.
Awesome.
Not on the code side, it's more like the infrastructure side.
All right. Well, I think we've hit the top of the hour here for our first hour. And with that, did we have any last comments from the panelists? I know, at least from the questions that we have, we will actually write a lot of these up and we'll have them available for people to look at.
Right.
And so kind of go around the room, and any last comments from the folks on our panel call?
Yeah, we start from Yanbo because you are very late there. So you're almost midnight in Beijing and you're still in the office. And
I think I will just read a question about to answer the question 3, 4,
5.
5. So we can have a quickly
5 more minutes. Yeah. Let's quickly check what the 3, 4. Can you read the 3, 4, 5? The first RV question. Yeah.
Yeah. So 3 we actually we brought up already. We've done that.
Yeah.
For 4 is regarding NEO. As we know, NEO has openly supported NKN, proven by tweets suggesting people to vote for NKN in the Binance poll that was participated. At the moment, is the NEO connection still standing? Has the decision to migrate from NEP5 to ERC20 affected any positive influence that NKN has with NEO?
Yeah, this is quick. So yeah, we always have good relationship with the NEO community, both the core team and also ecosystem. So even before the swap and also after swap, because I think NKN, well, NGC, NEO Global Capital investing and NKN, they already know that we have a different goal and different use case, and they know we'll launch our own mainnet, right? So it's never been a problem. So either NEP5 or ERC20 is a temporary token before the mainnet, right? So it's not really a deciding factor. And even after the swap, we are in good terms with all the main leaders of NEO, right? So we with Da Hongfei, Eric Zhang, Johnson Zhao from NGD. So yeah, I think this does not really impact our relationship with NEO, and we are still in good terms. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the NGT is still a long-term investor for NKN. But from project point of view, the different projects have a different mission and a use case.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so that's 3, 4, 5 done.
Yeah.
So maybe Yiren, last words from you.
So I'm actually typing for another question. Probably I can take this chance to answer the last one, which is a really interesting one, actually.
Okay, which question?
So on this is actually on Discord. I just saw this one. The GigaMesh is asking why NKN is vulnerable to like 33% attack rather than 51% attack. So this is actually a very good one. So this is a fundamental difference between a consensus algorithm that is BFT-like versus a consensus algorithm that is like the Bitcoin, the proof of work like. So it sounds like okay. It sounds like okay. The BFT-like consensus only gives you 33% attack guarantee, while the proof of work gives you 51%, but it's actually totally different thing. So the proof of work type of like consensus is very different. So fundamentally, it only gives you like eventual consistency, while the BFT consensus is giving you instant finality. So those are two different consensus level. So basically, for BFT-like consensus, like the Mocha consensus we are using. So every block generated, you can think of it as finalized. But for the proof of work style, for every block it generated, it's like there is a chance that it will be finalized, but there is also a chance that it will be thrown away. Only after a long time, you will say that, okay, with high probability, this block will be accepted. So since it's giving you a different level of consensus, that's why it's giving you sounds like a better security by doing that. But the price is that you have to wait for a long time before you can say that with high probability that block will be accepted. Yeah, so that's a fundamental difference why the BFT-like consensus seems to be less secure, but it is actually not.
Great. Actually, we're going to take 3 more questions here. And Yilan, since we've got you on the spot here, we're gonna bring you back in for this next one. So. Is NKN looking more in B2B direction or both B2B and B2C? If the last one is true, then you can make a short pitch to, if the last one is true, then can you make a short pitch to a heavy internet user, work plus gaming, why NKN is nuts? Okay,
yeah, so so in short, I'm going to say that we have more than that. We have 2C to B to C to D. So from the like to business perspective, as we have talked earlier, we are trying to provide some enterprise service to be profitable. And to customer, that's of course we have to develop our own wallet, our app that customer can use directly, and also the video that you just watched, and also this is for developers. We are providing the SDK so that any application can integrate us and use the communication layer we provide. So we are actually a little bit more than what you just described. But for the customer-facing part, I think we already talked about that by the game we just showed, right? So imagine that on a laptop, or you can play any game on any platform from a very lightweighted platform. From a very lightweighted laptop without using too much of your battery, just using your internet, and you can play some like super heavy 100 gigabit a super heavy game which takes like 100 gigabytes of disk space and a huge GPU to run, and you just pay by your usage, by your bandwidth usage. That's super exciting as a gamer, right, I would say. And also you can imagine that there are like 1,000 or tens of thousands of exit points for you to use if you want to use like a proxy or something to get faster like visit speed or something, or privacy or something. And you pay for what pay by what you need, but no need to like pay for a fixed amount of price per month. And the price actually should be like much cheaper than what you can already find on the market. So that's I would say that's a very very exciting thing for like an internet user as well as a gamer. And yeah, same as above. There will be more details coming soon.
Awesome. And here's the next question. NKN can help streaming services reduce their costs and latency, correct? Can you explain, like I'm 5, how it is achieved? For example, streaming games. How will nodes avoid having to store insane amounts of data? Will it be constant transfer from one point to another? I hope I made myself clear.
Okay, so I think I can give you 2 examples. So this is a very complex question because it kind of depends on it changes case by case. But I can give you 2 like typical examples. So the first example is more like for, let's say, take CDN as example. So the reason why CDN makes it like decentralized CDN makes it faster is that imagine you want to buy a burger. And currently you have to drive an hour in order to get to the burger place because that's where it sells a burger, and then drive back. But imagine that if your neighbor is now becomes a proxy and can store some burgers so that when you just want a burger, you can just walk to your neighbor and just grab it and come back. That'd be much faster, right? Because your neighbor is much closer to you. So that's why decentralized CDN makes it faster, because it has point of presence much closer to you than some like centralized data center. And the second example is that, well, it's not intuitive, but it is true that the current internet routing is far from optimal. It's kind of static and it's kind of old-fashioned. So if in some case, if we choose a different path by using a relay network as we use, you can actually get gain like faster speed or something like that. So these are like 2 examples of how we can make things faster.
Okay, and one final one for you, Elon, since we got you on here. I've read that there are cases of ISP throttling connection speed or preferencing certain services or websites. Can end users somehow use NKN to go around these things?
Technically, yes, because for technically speaking, people can use NKN to build some sort of like service to do that. So we currently don't have plan to build it our own, but I think if you are interested or someone is interested, I think technically it is doable.
Gotcha. And then the next question, this one is actually for Yanbo. So can NKN be also used as a low-cost anti-DDoSing service due to huge number of nodes?
That's a very good question. Yeah, something related with Elon just said about the advantage of the decentralization CDN solution. So currently we see more decentralization DDoS from the hack. The hack just use utilization sources of load from all over the world to DDoS the target host. One advantage is that NKN node could be used as a decentralization CDN, which means we deploy lots of agent node all over the world. We call the NCDN to keep the host running, called it's a decentralization way. And in this case, the DDoS attack just knows the big target or the host, because all of the loads all over the world could be host or catch the content in there. They cannot be attack thousands of nodes at the same time. So NKN have the larger advantage compared with the traditional CDN in this case. And I think that's the future of the network and the future to face such of an attack.
Great.
Excellent. Great. Well, thank you. So that really concludes our AMA for today. So I'd like to really thank our panelists. We had Yilan, we had Yanbo, and also Bruce with us today. And like I said, we'll compile a lot of these questions and have them available for our community. And thank you so much for watching.
And maybe one more thing. So since I think there's so many good questions, so we are going to send maybe 5 t-shirts to the top 5 people who ask questions, and like this. Like this one, yeah. And so Alan will be in charge of picking those 5 people, or even more, it's okay, like less than 10 is fine.
Yeah.
And we will, if you can give us your provide the shipping address, we'll send the t-shirt to you. So yeah, well, thanks for your interest in NKN and ask really good questions.
Yes, and meanwhile, there are lots of questions. So I think people still can ask the question in the forum, and from.nkn.org in the post, and we will answer them in the forum. And also we will post what's our just answered in the forum to let other people to know better about that.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great. Well, thank you everybody for joining.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
See you next time.
Okay,
Cheers.
thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.